Have you ever noticed how you keep ending up in the same relationship over and over again? I don't mean literally. I mean, it's a different person, it's a different face, but somehow still the same relationship. You know, the kind where your needs are never met, and you always feel insecure being in the relationship that you really, really, really wanted in your life, and still when you are in it, it feels different. And eventually, you end up breaking up with them, or maybe they break up with you, and you're back to thinking that relationships are not necessary. You feel hopeless about it. Back to square one. And if I'm being completely honest, it feels like back to square minus one actually. So, why does that happen? Why do we keep being attracted to people who were never going to meet our needs anyway? Why do we think that being low maintenance is the answer? Why do we assume that we are the ones pushing people away and never think that even if we had communicated our needs completely, they would never have been able to meet them? Why is being the cool girl such a trend till now? Hiding what we need so the relationship can supposedly work? Why do we keep putting so much pressure on ourselves to make our partner comfortable with whatever pace we are moving at? And never ever think about the pace that we need to move at. That's what we are getting into today. Hi, I am Mehak Chabra, your host, and this is Things We Never Say, a podcast about the conversations we avoid, the emotional patterns we repeat, and the things we all feel but rarely say out loud. I've been reading about attachment theory lately because I wanted to understand something that a lot of us keep experiencing. The fact that we know what kind of a relationship we want, but still ending up in the same place. Different person, different face, but exactly the same emotional patterns, the same emotional systems. And the more I read, the more interested I got into something we don't talk about when it comes to dating. It's about the fact that neediness has become synonymous with being undesirable. You are told, don't text too much, don't be too available, don't respond too fast, don't call. No, no, never. Don't call. Give them space. Never ask for reassurance. Don't expect too much. And don't make them feel like your life revolves around them. And there is some wisdom in there. You cannot make one person your whole universe. There is your work, there is your friends, there is your family. There are a lot of aspects of your life that can give you happiness. And one relationship should not become your entire world. But I think somewhere along the way, we have pushed ourselves a lot in the other direction. We have started acting like having needs is the problem itself. Wanting closeness is not automatically unhealthy. Wanting reassurance is not automatically unhealthy. Neither is wanting consistency or wanting to know where you actually stand with someone, or actually wanting your partner to consider you when they're making decisions. The question was never whether you have needs. Obviously, you have them. It's just what those needs actually are, how you are communicating them, and whether the person you are with is even capable of meeting them. And I think when we start thinking about our needs like that, it can really change the way that we approach dating. So, what actually is attachment theory and where does it start? What does it really tell us? It started with John Bowlby's work on how we as adults need emotional bonds in our life and how these bonds are not a childish thing and actually do dictate our emotional regulation, our physical being, our independence, our risk taking ability. And Mary Ainsworth's work, including the Strange Situation experiment, showed us how the presence of an attachment figure helps us go out and explore in the world. it was actually done on a child, but it is very valid for adults as well. There is this idea called the secure base. Secure base is basically this person or community that you can depend upon, that when you are in trouble, they will come for you and help you and will always be there. Like any situation, any circumstance, you will be able to depend on them completely. That is the idea of a secure base. And for a lot of people nowadays, that secure base is provided by a significant other. Secure base does not mean someone who does everything for you. It just means that you know someone is there. And that knowledge alone can make it so much easier to go out into the world. Think about the difference between traveling somewhere alone, where it is completely unfamiliar to you, and having someone to call if you are in a bad situation. And think about if you did not have anybody to call, no one to turn to. You could be in a really bad situation and you would not have anyone to call. The destination would be exactly the same and you would still be the same person, but having that support would change how safe you feel exploring, how safe you feel going out into the world and doing something that you want to do and spend your time on. That's something where I think that we have understood and that is something that I think we have really misunderstood about independence. We have started treating dependence and independence as these complete opposites of each other. They sound like them, but they are not. In healthy relationships, knowing that you can depend on someone is exactly what gives you the freedom to be independent out there in the world. To tell you the kind of impact that a relationship can have on your nervous system, let me tell you about a very, very interesting study that was done. So it was an fMRI study in which 16 married women were given the threat of an electric shock around their ankles, and it was given under three different situations. And the three situations were holding their husband's hand, holding a stranger's hand, and holding no one's hand. It was found that the neural responses to this threat of an electric shock were much lower when they were holding their husband's hand. What's even more interesting as is that they were even lower for the women who were very satisfied with their marriage. That is so interesting. Like, just having someone to depend on can reduce your stress response in life. The point is not that your significant other needs to hold your hand throughout everything in your life. It's just the fact that having a supportive partner can really help you deal with the world by calming your nervous system down. Being connected to someone does not automatically make you weaker. Sometimes it just gives your nervous system a little more room to deal with the world. Which brings me back to neediness. Because maybe we are not trying to not need anyone. Maybe we are trying to become someone who understands what they need and knows how to actually communicate it without making another person responsible for everything that we are feeling. So, why do some of us keep choosing people who cannot give us what we need? This is where attachment theory gets really interesting. People with more insecure attachment patterns can experience intimacy and threat pretty differently. Someone leaning more anxious might become especially sensitive to signs of rejection or abandonment, while someone leaning more avoidant might feel uncomfortable with too much closeness, almost like intimacy itself feels like a threat to their independence. Now, I don't want to turn this into one of those videos where we diagnose everyone we have ever dated as anxious or avoidant. People are more complicated than four attachment patterns or four boxes. And attachment patterns can genuinely shift across relationships and over time. You might feel anxious in one relationship but completely secure in another. But what I find more useful is looking at the cycle itself. Now I want you to imagine a couple. Picture someone who wants a lot of closeness in a relationship with someone who tends to pull away the moment intimacy increases. One person moves closer, the other moves away. The first person gets more anxious, so they try harder, which makes the second person feel a lot more pressure, so they create even more distance. And now the first person is even more activated than before. Suddenly, both people are behaving in exactly the way that confirms the other's deepest fear. The person seeking closeness is thinking, see, people leave when I need them. And the person seeking distance is thinking, see, people always want more from me than I can give. And now they've built a relationship that confirms both of their existing beliefs. That is kind of why anxious people can get very attracted to avoidant people, and avoidant people can get attracted to anxious people because they are trying to get into a familiar environment. They are trying to finish off their self beliefs. They want to keep believing the same thing, and because they end up in these kind of relationships, their beliefs are confirmed every time. There is research on couples that's found association between anxious avoidant pairings and heightened stress responses during conflict. Even though relationships are obviously far messier than just matching two attachment labels together, it can still help us predict how we are going to behave. And in this pattern, it can get really interesting. You can start confusing activation with chemistry and love. You can start comparing and equalizing anxiety with the feeling of love. Let's begin at the beginning. First, you met someone who is inconsistent. They texted constantly for 3 days and then disappeared. They told you that they really like you and then suddenly went distant, affectionate 1 week, emotionally unavailable the next. You never know where you stand, so you end up thinking about them constantly. You check your phone, you replay conversations, you analyze their tones, you keep wondering if they still like you, if they still are interested, or if this is just one of their silences, or have they broken up in their head and moved on. And while you're going in this circle of hell, they finally come and give you some reassurance. The same reassurance you've been waiting for. And you start to feel so incredible. You're so happy. You're like, wow, this is the exact relationship that I wanted. You forgive them and you are really, really happy with the situation. That anxiety disappears, you feel chosen again. And because that relief is so intense, you end up interpreting it as passion. You might end up thinking this person drives me crazy because I really love them. But an activated attachment system is not necessarily the same thing as romantic chemistry. Sometimes what feels like an incredible connection is really just uncertainty followed by relief. And that distinction is important because if you've spent enough time in relationships where you feel like you have to earn closeness, a relationship where somebody is simply consistent can feel very quiet, very boring. You feel like you don't have to decode them, you don't have to chase reassurance, you don't have to wonder if they're pulling away, and you might mistake that calm for a lack of chemistry. You might think that, oh, I'm not thinking about them the entire day the way that I did with my exes, so I'm definitely not interested. But it could be just that they are secure and they are not activating your anxiety. This is the exact place the low maintenance thing comes in. I think a lot of us have learned to perform being low maintenance. We don't say we want to see someone because we do not want to seem clingy. We don't ask where the relationship is going because we don't want to seem intense, right? We don't ask for reassurance because we do not want to seem insecure. We don't say something hurt us because we don't want to be difficult. We give them space, even when what we actually want is just closeness. And eventually, we get so good at hiding our needs that we stop knowing what our needs even are. We become completely focused on only one question: what will make this person stay? And we forget the more important one: are they even the person that we want to be with? This is where the cool girl idea becomes genuinely damaging, because you're so busy trying to make space for the other person that you forget to ask yourself anything. You let them set the pace, you let them decide when you see each other, you let them decide if you want to be committed or not. You keep asking whether they are okay with the commitment, even if you yourself want more. You forget asking anything to yourself. Giving someone space because you respect their need for independence is a very different thing from giving them space because you're terrified of what might happen if you do not. What if they leave? What if they stop finding you attractive? What if this? What if that? And you keep managing everything so that everything is suited for them. And respecting their independence and doing it because you are terrified can look very similar from the outside, but it's completely different from the inside. If your partner says, I need some time alone after a hard day, and you understand that's not a rejection of you, that is one thing. But if they disappear for 3 days and you convince yourself that asking for communication, healthy communication, would make you needy, that's something else entirely. Healthy independence leaves room for communication. It does not require one person to constantly shrink their needs. And I think this applies to people who need independence as well. If you need time alone, that's okay. If you need more space between seeing your partner, that's also okay. If you need time to process conflict before actually talking about it, completely fine. You don't have to become someone who wants constant closeness just because your partner does. But you do have to communicate it. You can say, I need some time alone after conflict, but I'm not leaving this relationship. I just need a little time to process. That one sentence can completely change the experience for the other person, because now they're not left trying to interpret your silence. You get your space, they get clarity, and both people's needs actually have room in the relationship. That's what a healthy relationship should be doing, not making one person's needs disappear just so the other person can be comfortable. And if you are someone who tends to be more anxious, there is an equally important responsibility on your end. You have to learn your actual needs, not the needs that make you seem easygoing, not the ones that make you more socially acceptable, not the ones that you think will keep someone from leaving you. Your actual needs. It could be consistency, regular communication, affection, or commitment, or someone who is willing to talk through conflict instead of avoiding it. Maybe you want a relationship where you see each other 4 times a week. Maybe you want less than that. None of that is actually making you needy. It is just information about the kind of relationship that actually works for you. And if you don't know what you need, it becomes almost impossible to figure out whether someone else is capable of meeting your needs. When you started this episode, you might have thought that the title was a little provocative, but I do mean it. Being needy can actually be a dating superpower. It's not really because you should expect your partner to fulfill every emotional need you have, or because you should demand constant reassurance, or because your partner should become your therapist, your best friend, your entire social life, and the only source of happiness. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that your needs give you information. If you need consistency and someone is consistently inconsistent, you know that this is not going to work. This helps you filter out in the beginning. If you need communication and someone refuses to communicate, that is going to tell you something. And if you want commitment and someone keeps telling you that they don't want that, that also tells you that you're not with the right person. If you want affection and someone tells you they're just not an affectionate person, it's not going to work. The answer isn't always how do I become less needy so they will stay. Sometimes the better question is this person actually someone who can give me the relationship I want? That can change dating completely, because now you're not trying to convince someone to choose you. You're trying to figure out whether the two of you actually fit together. And more importantly, more than knowing your needs, effectively communicating those needs helps you too. It's not like if you think that I want consistent communication and the other person is inconsistent and you decide, oh, this is not going to work, I'm going to break up today. It's not like that. You have to communicate what your needs are. It's not a movie. No one is working with telepathy here, thinking that, yeah, you know what, I just got this message in my brain that this person likes consistency, so I have to be consistent to be with them. It's not going to work like that. You have to communicate your needs, and effectively communicating them is going to be very difficult in the beginning for everyone. It's a little difficult to be vulnerable and tell the other person that, listen, this is what I want. You can agree with it or you can disagree with it, but this is exactly what I want. Putting yourself out there like that and giving someone else the power to accept it or reject it can be very difficult, but it can get better with practice. It will also help you not waste your time. One other thing that can help with this situation is knowing that there is a lot of abundance in the world. Having just one person to talk to when you are just out there starting to date again can bring your focus to just one person. Constantly thinking if you should wait 5 hours before you text back or whether you should text back instantly. It puts all of your attention on one person, and when they disappoint you and when they pull away, you just want to bring that closeness back. But if you're just starting out, don't put your attention on just one person. Talk to multiple people. It helps you gauge who would be more present with your needs, who would be more reassuring, who would be with you and give you exactly what you need. And this also helps with splitting your focus into different directions. You don't have to completely always think about just one person. You can talk to 5 people, and if one person is not the kind of person that you're looking for, you can just let them go. Saves your time, saves their time, and hopefully you will end up with a healthier relationship than you had before. In all of this, a life outside of your relationship also matters. Your friends, your work, your hobbies, your goals, everything matters. The things that make you feel like yourself matter. It's not because you should pretend you do not need your partner, but because one person should not have to carry your entire emotional world. When you have other sources of connection and meaning, someone's delayed text does not have to become a referendum on your worth. Their bad mood does not automatically become your problem. Their uncertainty does not take over your whole day where you cannot focus on anything else. And you actually have more room to observe the relationship for what it is. Do they show up? Do they communicate? Do their actions match their words? Can they handle a difficult conversation? Do they make space for your needs? Do you feel safe being honest with them? Do you feel like yourself around them? Those questions tell you so much more about compatibility than whether you manage to wait 3 hours before replying to a text. And I think there is one more thing worth saying. Sometimes the person who makes you feel the most anxious really is not the person you are most compatible with. They might be the person who is activating something you have experienced before, something that you've mistaken for love before. And sometimes the person who feels safe does not create the same immediate intensity. That does not mean that you should force yourself to date someone you're not attracted to. It just means that it's worth paying attention to what the intensity feels like. Is it excitement or uncertainty? Is it actually attraction or anxiety? Is he really boring or just consistent? Are you genuinely connecting with this person, or are you waiting for them to finally choose you? They can feel very identical from the inside, but are completely different things. So, yes, do not be less needy. Be more honest about your needs. Know them, communicate them, and then actually pay attention to what the other person does with that information. If you're more secure, communicating your needs helps your partner understand you. If you're more anxious, effective communications can help you move away from trying to get reassurance indirectly by protest behavior, like calling them 100 times a day or not calling them at all because you were waiting for them to call you. So, if you ask for your needs directly, it can stop you from asking for your needs indirectly. And if you're avoidant, it can help you ask for independence without leaving the other person wondering whether you have abandoned them. Your attachment pattern does not have to become your destiny. But if you don't understand your own patterns, you'll probably keep choosing relationships that confirm exactly what you already believe. And that is exactly how you end up looking at three completely different relationships and realizing I was dating the same person 3 times, just with a different face and a different name, but exactly the same emotional pattern. The same uncertainty, the same feeling of trying to get someone to give you something that they were never really willing or able to give you. And there's one more thing: if you're less needy, you are going to attract people who are not willing to meet your needs, because you're showing them that it's okay to be the way that they are, and you are accepting them the way that they are. So you're going to attract those partners. But just remember that maybe you are not too much. Maybe you're just asking the wrong person for the right things. I hope that changes how you date, because your needs are not the only aren't only things that someone else has to fulfill. They're also information you get to use to decide who belongs in your life and who definitely does not. So, if I had to take everything I've been reading about attachment and relationships and boil it down to one thing, I want you to remember it's this: your needs are information. Don't hide them so well that you end up choosing someone who only works for the version of you that does not need anything. And if you're listening to this about a relationship where you have been trying to make yourself smaller, or you have noticed that you keep choosing the same kind of person over and over again, that is that is exactly the kind of pattern I work with through Unpack with Mehak. It's a conversation where we slow things down, understand what keeps repeating, and figure out what you actually want to do differently. If that sounds useful, you'll find the link in the description. Thank you for spending this time with me. This was Things We Never Say, and I'll see you in the next episode.